Porcelain shattered against marble, followed by a high, furious scream. The head nanny stormed through the glass hallway, her apron half torn, muttering that she quit and that the boy was unreachable, her heels clicking like gunfire as the butler trailed behind, stammering apologies. At the far end of the dining room sat 10-year-old Ethan Hale, hands folded, face unreadable, the billionaire's deaf son. Since his mother died 2 years earlier, sound had faded into a muffled world. Doctors called it progressive loss, the house called it disobedience. Chaos raged around him while he remained silent as the butler hissed for him to look at what he'd done. Ethan didn't move, only tapped his fingers against the mahogany table once, twice, again, each rhythm precise, as if calling someone who could hear. From the corner, Clara Jones, the maid, froze mid-sweep. No one noticed her, but she recognized the rhythm, the same her late brother used when words failed. She stepped closer, heart racing, and signed a single word, "Hello." Ethan stopped tapping, his eyes widened, and he signed back, hesitant and trembling. The butler scoffed that the boy was just playing, but Clara blinked, breath caught, because she understood exactly what he said, "You see me." 7 weeks, 5 nannies, 1 boy trapped in silence until someone finally listened. Before she ever stood in the mansion, Clara Jones had learned what silence could take from a person. Her brother Samuel lost his hearing at 6, and because their mother couldn't afford specialists, Clara became his interpreter. Every night after diner shifts, she traced letters into his palm until he smiled. When he died at 15 from pneumonia, she promised she would never stop listening. That promise followed her through layoffs, eviction notices, and the day she answered an agency ad for a discreet housekeeper. The Hale estate felt less like a home and more like a museum, everything gleaming but lifeless, staff speaking in whispers. Clara was told to keep to the West Wing and avoid the boy. She needed the job, her daughter's school fees overdue, but when she saw Ethan sitting alone, she felt recognition. His hands fluttered beneath the table, forming half-remembered signs. When his toy car fell, she instinctively signed, and he repeated it back, afraid to believe it. Warned not to confuse him, she bowed her head, yet when she turned away, Ethan tapped twice in thanks. That night, alone in her quarters, Clara cried, realizing that in a house full of people with everything, it was a child who couldn't hear who finally saw her. The next morning, she signed "Good morning," and Ethan smiled. From the hall, Evelyn Carter saw the exchange and summoned Clara to her office, the silence no longer peaceful but a warning, because in that mansion, kindness was dangerous and visibility had consequences. Fired for incompetence was the official reason given, the explanation that the boy wouldn't cooperate, but unofficially no one could tolerate Richard Hale's temper when his son refused to speak. The billionaire appeared rarely, yet left trails of control behind, notes in marble hallways demanding meetings and silence. To him, Ethan's silence wasn't grief but defiance, despite the millions spent on behavioral specialists, consultants, and private clinics that all labeled the boy unmotivated, each failure hardening Richard's belief that his son was choosing this. One night during dinner service, the room gleamed with cold wealth as Ethan sat beside his father, trying to mimic the rhythm of the forks until one slipped from his hand and shattered the order against the tile. Richard's jaw tightened, Evelyn flinched, the butler whispered "not again," and Ethan froze in silent panic. Clara stepped forward instinctively and signed softly that it was okay, guiding him through 3 simple motions. Ethan blinked and smiled, small and unsure, as the table paused and Richard glanced up in confusion, only for Evelyn to dismiss it quickly and promise Clara would be reminded of her place. Though dinner resumed, the air remained cracked, and later Evelyn cornered Clara, warning her not to overstep, to remember she was there to polish, not raise heirs, her words carrying the weight of history. Yet Ethan's smile had already shifted something, marked the next morning by 3 taps on the table meaning "thank you," and later 2 more meaning "stay." For the first time, the silence in the mansion felt like waiting. At a garden luncheon carved from wealth, Ethan sat stiff beside untouched fruit as flashes burst and music struck, turning the event into a war zone of sound and light. His fork clattered, his breath hitched, and he signed frantically as guests whispered judgment and pity. Clara set down her tray and crossed the lawn despite Evelyn's warning, kneeling to sign calmly that he was safe, building a tiny bridge with steady breaths until his panic eased and the music fell silent. From above, Richard watched as a maid succeeded where experts had failed, descending the stairs with the weight of a verdict and demanding who authorized her to speak to his son. Clara answered simply that someone had to listen, but Evelyn intervened and Richard dismissed Clara on the spot as cameras clicked and gasps spread. Ethan shook his head and struck the table 3 deliberate times, the signal Clara understood as "thank you." She knelt once more to promise she would come back, then walked away as guards hesitated and whispers followed her. From the balcony, Richard turned his back, but Ethan stared at the gate where Clara disappeared and, for the first time since his mother's death, released a broken sound that cracked through the marble and money.